Yeah. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, or if you are new here, welcome. I am very excited today because I am joined by Brandon Christensen, the director of Night of the Reaper. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me. It's cool. This is like the first live YouTube interview I've done, so let's hope I don't screw up too bad.
It's live. Anything can happen, but no, you'll do good. I loved this movie, Night of the Reaper. It took me back to, a lot of slasher films I've seen from that time period. But I want to kind of know first where kind of your love of like horror started and like your filmmaking journey. Like, how did this all start for you to like actually direct and such?
I mean, like, the horror side of things was just growing up, my parents would always watch horror movies at Halloween time. And, a lot of the time I would sneak in and watch with them. And I saw a lot of stuff that I was way too young to see. And I think what happens when you do that, you kind of get really scared as a kid. And then eventually that kind of fear and like going to bed and all that stuff that goes away and you kind of miss it. So then you start seeking it out for yourself and you're just like trying to find the next thing that's going to make you scared. And it's just sort of this visceral feeling that you can get. And it's one of those things that really only horror movies can do. So, yeah, I was just kind of always just chasing that dragon and trying to get scared. And then you'd get scared from something and it would be a great thing. And then all of a sudden, it wears off and you continue that search. So, I'd always been kind of making little short films and stuff like that with my siblings growing up because we got our own camcorder in 1993, and we were constantly just filming things all the time, and I have all of them still, and they're horrible, but it was just a lot of fun to kind of just tell stories in video form. And so as I was getting older and I was going through high school, like I still never lost that desire to do that, but I just wasn't I wasn't just putting myself out there to do it enough. I was just like, an introverted teen, and it just didn't work. And so I went to film school, and, I started to surround myself with people that did it too. And I just sort of recaptured that passion for it. And, I haven't really stopped. So when I did get into narrative stuff, like even short films and stuff, genre, horror, anything like that, they were kind of what I found myself doing the most. And so it just kind of like kept evolving until I did my first feature.
That's awesome. And you just keep on evolving as a director. You just keep on making new things now, like new features coming out. You've done like what, six films so far? 5?
Yeah, I've directed 6.
Yeah, 6. Yeah. And they've all been really, really good. If you guys want to check out most of his films, they are on Shudder. You guys can check those out there. But yeah, this film, I really liked that, it first off, I guess I just kind of want to know like what inspired the idea for Night of the Reaper, because I thought this was such a unique kind of spin on the slasher genre.
Yeah, I have to go way back to when I was in the 8th grade. I was at a birthday party and we all watched When a Stranger Calls, and we were all just sitting in a basement eating pizza. And, everybody in that room was just like so taken by that first 20 minutes of the film, like the big cold open. And so, that was just something that always stuck in the back of my head. And when I got to start making films myself, you're always trying to figure out like, okay, what's next? And I would constantly think about the babysitter idea and just like doing something with the babysitter, but I didn't know what it was because there's so many good versions of it. There's Halloween, there's When a Stranger Calls, there's, like House of the Devil. It's been done so many times so well that we needed to put our own kind of twist on it. And so my brother and I, we were just talking about this, and this was like in 2020, and we were just figuring out, okay, well, what's an interesting way that we can go through this? You know, is this like a supernatural film? Is it something else? And we just sort of found this, you know, narrative through line that we ended up sticking with, which was, you know, this babysitter movie with a twist. And yeah, we just started developing that back in like 2020, and it just took a long time to get, you know, to finally get going. There was a lot of false starts and stops, but you know, the script was always just kind of, how do we make something really comfortable and familiar, and then take that away from the audience at a certain point and make them kind of feel like, oh wait, this isn't what I thought it was going to be, and it turns into something else. So yeah, that was kind of it. It was just like, how do we, you know, if we just did another House of the Devil, like it'd be cool because that movie's great, but it wouldn't be our own thing. Everybody would just say, oh, it's been done better before. So if we were able to kind of like have that as a touchstone, and it's like, okay, here, like this is very familiar to you. When we do kind of throw that curveball, the audience is, you know, a little bit shocked, and it just kind of gets them even more because they thought they know what they were going into.
Oh, wow. So y'all been working on this project for 5 years, because you said 2020 is,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. But one thing I especially really loved about Night of the Reaper, so I'm a 90s kid. I was born in the 90s, but I am an 80s kid at heart, with like the music and that I would always listen to, and you know, how I was raised, the shows I'd watch and everything. So I really loved like the 80s aesthetic here. You have like VHS filters pop up. You have like the, you know, Heartbreaker from Pat Benatar and a few other really great songs in here. And I was just wondering, like, what made you, because all your other films are present day for the most part. So I'm just wondering, like, what made you want to just like go back to the 80s and kind of
I mean, yeah, I was born in the 80s. You know, I grew up mostly in the 90s as well, but it's always just like a period of time that I look back on. I have all these old home videos from like before we even got our camera, and we have all these old photos and stuff like that. And there's just something about that era that just is very inspiring, and you know, it just makes it creatively, it's just so interesting, because when you think of the 80s, there's like different ways that you can do it. And there's like the neon kind of like the hot colors and stuff like that. But then there's the version that I remember and the version that are in all my photographs and videos. And that's like the wood paneled brown, just very muted. And, you know, and this just seemed like a great opportunity for us to try something, period. Because I've done, you know, every movie I've done has always been current day. And it was cool to just like, you know, try and recreate a time that I remember. And, you know, it's just a very specific look that I wanted to go for. And so it was just like an interesting kind of experience trying to just recreate that. And so, you know, it helps in a lot of different ways with the story too, because, you know, every movie these days, you have to find a way to write out the cell phone. It's like, oh, we're out of service, whatever it is, because the cell phone can solve so many issues. So if you just go to a time where that isn't a possibility, you can just keep it really pure and just about the story. And so that was really exciting for us.
Oh man, that's awesome. And was there anything challenging about, you know, trying to accurately portray the 80s, like that time period, as opposed to, you know, making something like a present day type of scenario?
Yeah, I mean, like the hardest part is just making it feel right. You know, like you go down any street that was sort of just like an iconic 80s street. Now most of the houses will have been, you know, torn down and rebuilt to some like modern kind of thing that totally ruins the vibe. So just in the locations and the scouting and all of that stuff, we really, you know, we didn't have the money to make any of this stuff. Like these are all real places that we found. And so, you know, you're just like scouring everywhere and like talking to everyone, you know, to see if does anyone have like a grandmother that hasn't updated their house in 40 years. And, you know, that's kind of what you're looking for. So, yeah, it was a huge challenge, because like I didn't want any scene to feel out of place and feel modern and just be like, oh, it's just an indie movie, you know, because I've seen a lot of indies that have tried, and you know, it's to varying results. You know, it's really tough to do, because like, and that was a big reason why it's very vaguely 80s. Like it takes place in the 80s, but it's not a specific year. You know, you've got an Atari, you've got cars from, you know, all throughout the decade, you've got a RoboCop poster, and it kind of just like It Follows did something similar. I mean, they did it in a much bigger and cooler way, where it was like all the technology didn't make sense or fall into any sort of timeline. And so what ends up happening is you create a movie that is just like in its own time and place. And we kind of did that here with the 80s. It's just like 80s. Everything goes. If it's in the 80s, it's in the movie. And so, yeah, it was cool. You know, it was a ton of fun, and just like being on set in these places and like sitting on the floor and playing Atari. You know, I did that when I was a kid, and it was super fun to revisit that.
Yeah, no, that is really fun. And I'm also wondering, because another aspect on top of it, just it being like the 80s and that kind of fun aesthetic and how it captured that, was I also loved that this is something that is going to be a tradition for me now. I can turn it on every Halloween because it takes place around the holiday. And was that like did you like intend for that to happen initially, or is that just something that like just came to be as it went along?
Yeah, I mean, that's always something that's like a goal every time you make a movie. You're like, I want to make something that has some legs, you know? And so I have seen a lot of people that have said like, yeah, this is going to be in my yearly rotation. And like, that's a massive honor, because the films that are in those yearly rotations are typically like those legendary films like Halloween and Scream and all of these films that have been culturally relevant for so long. And so, you know, not that I'm saying that this is going to be anywhere near those, but people have been digging the film in a way that they might revisit it over and over. And I think the film actually lends itself to being rewatched, because it has a lot of stuff in the first two acts that are teasing what's going to happen later, and you'd never know on your first watch. So I think when people do kind of do that rewatch, they're going to pick up on things every time where it's like, oh, I didn't notice that. Like, oh, I didn't notice that. Because you know, we the script, and when we were shooting, like there was a lot of care put into making sure there were breadcrumbs that you could follow as you kind of see what Dean is doing throughout the day. So yeah, I mean, it's a tremendous honor to have anybody want to rewatch a film or watch a film. So I mean, yeah, I think it's pretty cool just to know that someone's out there wanting to watch it. You doing it is great.
Yeah, and and you know, making it a holiday vibe just helps add to that.
Totally.
And speaking of, I'm also wondering, because I know you got to rework with Keegan in this movie, because you know, she was in Z, but I'm just wondering what the casting process, how you found some of these actors, because you know, Jessica, phenomenal in the film as the final girl, and then of course Ryan Robbins was great as the sheriff. So I'm just wondering like where all these, how you found them, what it was like working
Yeah.
with them.
Yeah, we had a casting director, this girl in LA named Coco Kleppinger, and she did a great job just sort of getting us a ton of people to read. The film is Canadian, like it had to be a Canadian cast because of tax credits and everything. And so, you know, there's so many talented people here, but we put out a pretty wide net, and Jessica was one of, I think, 70 people that auditioned for Dina. And so, you know, you get 70 auditions, and that's just like the curated ones. Like there's probably hundreds that actually did, but then the casting director goes like, okay, these are the ones that are good. And then, you know, I've got my selects and stuff like that. And yeah, it's just like a matter of just kind of pairing all these people, because you've got so many relationships in the film that are intermixed. You need to make sure that they make sense together. And so Summer H. Howell, who plays Emily, she was actually reading for Dina as well, and she was great. And you know, you're kind of like taking headshots and going like, okay, well, this person with this person, how do they look and stuff like that. And it was really Jessica's eyes that sold her on me. It's just you know, we did the audition scene that we did. There was a couple, but one of them was the walkie-talkie scene where she's playing hide and seek. And just like the fear that she had just in the auditions alone was so cool and just great to see. And you just see those eyes, and that's where everybody's going to be looking. And it was just like, oh man, she has to be our Dina. And so, you know, almost all the parts, like with Keegan Connor Tracy, I just kind of wrote her and I was like, hey, we're writing a part for you. Like, you have to do it. There's nothing you can do. It's just unfortunately going to happen. And it's going to be a lot of late nights, and you're going to, you know, it's going to be terrible for you, but you're going to do it. And, you know, we've worked together 3 times now, and she's just always game for the horrible things I put her through. And with Ryan Robbins, he was actually not originally cast. We had another guy that as we, he wanted to do it, and he was booked on another TV show, and it just didn't work. So, I mean, that's the big thing with indies, is that a lot of the time you're like trying to get casts that'll work with you, but their agents are like, oh, there's a bigger thing on the horizon that we're trying to get. And so you're kind of like trying to squeeze time for everything to work. And so this other guy, he had to leave the project for this show. And Jessica Clement had actually worked with Ryan Robbins on a show years ago called Pure, where he played her father. And she was just like, when I told her that the guy bailed, she was just like, oh, I know who it is. It's Ryan Robbins. Like, let's get him. I'll make a call. And she just like put these pieces together. He read the script. We talked, and it was, it just felt like the right fit. So we got him on board.
Oh man, that's so great. And then I'm also wondering, just I don't know if you can say it without spoiling it, because I don't want to spoil it for people who are watching it here. But yeah, this film has a massive twist in it that was really cool. And was that just that was like something that was in the script from the beginning, or is that just something that you wanted to add to the film, like as you're just writing it?
No, I mean, the twist was always there. Like, the script is very, very careful in how it leads the reader through and planning those clues. But the way the twist plays out is a little bit different. Like, it was a little bit more staggered when there's that moment that happens, and then you have the TV sort of telling us sort of what they missed. That was all an edit thing that I came up with after the fact, because it was kind of like just like little bits of information from the rest of the movie sprinkled throughout in the script. And I was like, you know what, let's, like, Gone Girl did that twist that is kind of similar. And it's just like, they did such a cool way where they have this montage of events and like all this stuff. And it's like, it's very well done. And so I kind of leaned on that, and I was like, oh, let's try the Gone Girl thing. So I tried editing it, and it was just really impactful. So I was just like, all right, let's stick with this, and we'll allow the audience to just be completely in the know for the entire final act, rather than like slowly introducing new kind of twists and things like that. So yeah, it was kind of a post thing, but the idea of just like the twist in the script, that was always there.
Awesome. And another question I have: so slashers are obviously always iconic for the kills, but they're also really iconic for the look of how the slasher killer looks. And so I'm just wondering where this kind of Reaper design came from. It's a badass looking mask and really cool cape gown costume that they're wearing. So I'm just wondering where that all came from. Idea.
I think the mask, which I have right here, actually, we had two of them made,
cool.
But I believe they just bought it at like a Spirit of Halloween store, and then one of the production designers just kind of painted all the detail into it, so it has like a lot of shadow work. They put the nylon mesh in the eyes and stuff like that. But yeah, they just kind of created it from, I think it was just like a sheer white mask before, and so he made a couple different copies of it, and I got to keep one, fortunately. And then the hood was just made by one of our costume people, this girl Heather, and yeah, she just made a couple custom ones. I still have that too, which is great. It's just hanging in my closet, so I can do any sort of Reaper related cosplay as needed. But yeah, I mean, it's just the slasher is always like, what is it going to look like? Ghostface is obviously one of the most recognizable. Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees, all these characters have these designs, and ours is a little simpler than that because, to me anyways, I don't think the costume for the killer is as big of a focus for the story. Like, it's just keeping things going until you know who it is. But for those other movies, like, all the marketing is about that poster or that mask and everything. So yeah, I mean, when you're doing an indie, you're just like, you never know what you're going to get, and then they come back with this thing, they paint it all cool, and I'm like, oh great, that's awesome, I love this, and it's exactly what it should have been. So there's a big thing about the Halloween decorations in the city, and having it somewhat closely match those was was important for me for the story too.
Yeah, no, that does I totally understand that. That's really important. And also, before we take a few live questions, because we got a few live questions, what was the most like challenging aspect, the part, but also most rewarding aspect when filming Night of the Reaper for you?
Challenging. I mean, just recreating the era was super challenging just because every location, every prop, everything had to fit in this window of time that had to match. And so I think that was, for me anyways, that was the hard part, was just making sure that every set that we walked in on felt right, And so being able to shoot these scenes, like even just Max and Dina playing Atari, like it just felt like sitting on my grandparents' floor and playing Atari, and like that feeling was just so vivid for me there that I was super proud of just how that all felt, and Max in the movie is my son, so that was another thrill, just being able to work with him. And he was there for like 6 days or something like that, and just watching him evolve from being very green, not really understanding how to be on set and how to do the things, to by the end just being like a total professional was super cool.
Oh, well, your son did a great job on the set too. Which I would ask you this one last question before we get into our live questions is there any, because you talked about this being in the 80s, is there any other kind of time period you could see yourself wanting to kind of delve into now that you've done 80s, like any other kind of time period?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to do the 90s. Like, I was a big PC kid growing up in the 90s, like during the Wolfenstein and Doom era, that just getting all those CD-ROMs with like 101 demos on them, and you could just, all those shareware, and doing anything in that time period when just like, you're kind of right at the beginning of the internet, when it's dial-up and it's like AOL and all these things, and it's just this like, there's this promise of the future of what online can be, and I think that hasn't really been fully tapped. Like, we've got movies like BlackBerry and The Social Network that do a great job of just telling these kind of technical time periods in our lives, and I don't really think there's been really anything done about that for the early kind of PC boom. So that'd be awesome, just like early cell phones, early pagers, all that stuff. Like, there was a lot of really funny gear and technology in the 90s that would be fun to take really seriously. So the 90s would be great. And I that one I fully lived through. So, I remember it very well.
Oh yeah, same. I definitely would be able to relate to that. So yeah, we have a few more questions, but I'm going to save those till after the live questions. But real quick, we'll take one from Acres of Movies, who is asking, what is your favorite scene of a movie that you've shot so far?
That's a good question, because every movie has scenes that I'm super proud of. There's one in the movie that came out a couple years ago, The Puppet Man, where it's like this double death sequence that's happening, and it's kind of flashing back and forth. That was one that was just, they're all indies, they're all indie budgets, and you're trying to be very creative with your kills, and so that was an opportunity to really flex kind of the visual effects side of how I work, because like all the fire and stuff like that, and the one scene is all done digitally. I mean, it's real fire, and we shot it as a separate plate, but just creating this sequence that kind of jumps back and forth between these two horrifying deaths was super cool, especially just like with the time restraints when we shot them. Like we didn't have that much time to shoot either of them. They're just parts of bigger days, because when you're on an indie, you've got only so many days, and it's like you've got a huge library burn going in the afternoon, and the whole morning's doing something else. So you're just sort of stuck rushing through this thing. But I feel like it was done in a way that worked really well, and I was able to achieve the VFX that I wanted to on it, and I think it turned out really cool. So that that I was super proud of, especially because they were like right at the beginning of the shoot too. So it was, every time you start a film, you're kind of working up to getting to the crew, the crew gelling and all the stuff and all the pieces falling in, because the second half of the shoot is always a lot smoother than the first half, because people are still learning each other. So to be able to go into like the very first week of shooting and do these massive death scenes, and have them, turn out the way I wanted to, I thought that was awesome and just super fun to do. Like, it was just a career achievement that I felt worked. It was just no hiccups. It just worked.
Oh man, yeah, that's great. And Puppet Man is also great, guys. Go check that one out on Shudder if you have not seen that. Also was wondering, what is your favorite horror character, or who's your favorite horror character, and technically, if you want, you can count one of your horror characters.
No, I wouldn't do that. I mean, there's so many like iconic horror movie characters that have just sort of like lived on, like Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees and stuff like that. But I think Freddy Krueger is unique and stands out. One, because he's just funny, like he's constantly like trolling the people. So it's not just like a faceless, voiceless killer. It's someone that is like toying with his food throughout the entire thing. And it's just like, he's having fun, and you can see that on screen. And Robert did such a great job doing the performance for years. And just like the creativity that went into all these films, like going back to the first one with like the upside down bed with the blood coming out when Johnny Depp gets pulled through. Like, it's not just a machete in the head or whatever, which is great. There was just real creativity to it. Like, you watch Dream Warriors, and there's a scene where I can't remember her name, but she puts her hand on the faucet in the bathroom, and then the faucet like grows fingers and grabs her. And it's just like, there's so many random, tiny, creative things that were happening in that series that I'm shocked I'm sure they've tried a bunch of times, but I'm shocked it hasn't been rebooted the way that I feel like it could now, because it's just like unbridled creativity, and I love that.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. I'm a Freddy guy as well, and that actually brought up a question in my head, is that like all your horror films that you've done are all original, which I love. I love that they're all original. But if there was like one franchise that you feel you'd be confident in like actually doing like a reboot or a remake or something like that of, like, which franchise would that be for you?
I mean, honestly, Nightmare on Elm Street would be sweet, because I love the kind of ultra creative kill stuff. And I feel like, having a budget, which you would have in something like that, like kind of the sky's the limit. Like with what you can do these days with visual effects and practical effects and stuff like that, like all the techniques have been figured out. Like, there's not a lot of trial and error anymore. It's like there are methods to do everything. So I feel like the limitations wouldn't be there, so you could really just go insane. Like, being inside of a dream is such a crazy thing in the first place. So, and it's like, you look at a movie like Inception, where it's all dreams within dreams, and it's just really fun with what you can do when like the earth is bending in on itself and like everything's exploding. It's just like there is no limits, and it would be fun to kind of tap into that. But another answer I've given before, because I've been asked that, is even though it was just done, but that's a book I've read. I love. It's amazing. The movies I didn't find scary, which is a bummer, because Andy's a great director. Mama was a super cool film, and like he's, the performances, the films themselves are great. They're super well made, but it almost feels like that Marvel thing where all those scares are pulled at the last, like all the punches are pulled at the last second, and it doesn't allow you to just be scared and like see bad things happen. And that was the big bummer for me, because like I grew up terrified of the miniseries. So going into that, I was really excited to see how they would do it again. And it was cool. The performances are great, everything like that. It just wasn't as scary as I feel like it should be, and shouldn't be it's not as dark as it should be. Especially the sequel, which is a lot of like big goosebumps monsters like running at the screen with googly eyes. And it's like, okay, I get it, but we're doing an R-rated horror movie. Let's be serious for a second, because it just tonally was a little bit off for what I would hope for from a book that scary.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of that has to do with hype too. I've noticed this especially in horror, where a lot of times people will they will hype up a movie and say how scary it is, and then it's like you go to see it and you're like, it's not like that scary, guys. It's like,
right?
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, it's all subjective.
Yeah, it's all subjective. But I was the same way. I was kind of laughing at it with my friend when we went to go see it in theaters.
Right.
And as a horror director, that's not something. But I agree. Andy Muschietti is a great director overall.
Yeah.
And
I'm excited for Welcome to Derry. I think it looks awesome. So hopefully it's darker than than the other ones.
Hopefully. And then this is also one too. Would you ever go outside your comfort zone and make a comedy, or like any other, or like if not a comedy, then like what other category would you want to do besides just horror?
Yeah, I'd love to do a comedy. I mean, I've been working on a comedy script with my wife for like a couple of years now, And it's fun, you know, it's different, but it's not that different. Like writing a joke is similar to writing a scare. Like you have to set up in a punchline, and so instead of doing like you know, a kill gag or something like that, it's a joke. And how are you going to do that? Is it going to be a visual joke? Is it going to be a line read? Like what is it? I that it's really fun to kind of tackle it and kind of play in that world. But the problem is there's no like there's not a great indie comedy scene. Like it's very tough to get distribution, to sell it, to do all these things, because comedy is very cultural. And so like a comedy, it relies on language and culture and like how people talk in a certain place. Cause I you know, something funny here isn't going to play funny for someone in Japan. Whereas horror movies, you can make something scary that's, you know, people are scared by the same things. So like my first couple films was like mom and child danger, scary. And then you take that to Japan, you take it to Russia, whatever, they're also scared by that too. And so it creates opportunities that comedies don't really have right now. Unless you've got like a massive star like a Seth Rogen headlining it, and then you can kind of do what you want. But you know that costs money, and when you're doing indies you don't have that. So I actually produced an indie comedy back in like 2018 2019 called Summerland, and super fun to help work on and everything, but it no one ever saw it or anything. It just kind of just died because there's just not a market for that. And so it's tough, but I, you know, we'll continue writing this thing because we do love it, and maybe things will turn. Like we just had The Naked Gun come out, and that was the first like big broad comedy that I've seen in a long time, and maybe things will change a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, from time to time you'll find it, but it's usually through like A24 or like a Neon or from time to time or something along those lines. So, which kind of makes me curious as to. I love Shudder. I've subscribed to Shudder. I've been a supporter of Shudder. Shudder sponsor me. But I was just wondering, like, where your kind of relationship with Shudder, like how that started, because like all your films seem to like they really love working with you, and they're always distributing your films, which is great. I think they're a really great outlet for independent horror like this. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, I mean, like, you know, talking about comedy again, like there is no comedy version of Shudder, you know, that would help kind of boost, you know, indie scene up into that thing. So having Shudder has been, you know, amazing. Like I don't know where my career would be without them, because I've had all 6 of my movies have been or are on Shudder. Like the only one that's not right now is Stillborn because of a rights thing, but it, you know, hopefully it comes back because it belongs on the platform. But my relationship with them started when I did Stillborn, because we did our world premiere at Overlook, and Shudder made an offer to acquire it along, you know, with another company that we ended up going with, because the other company was saying that they would do a theatrical release, and like Shudder was still fairly young back then. You know, they just turned 10, and this was 9 years ago. So they didn't have like Blu-rays and stuff like that. And I really wanted to have like a physical copy of my own movie. So we went with this company, Vertical Entertainment, and they ended up just sub-distributing it to Shudder anyways for the streaming. So we ended up getting like the best of both worlds. So we had our release, it came out, it, you know, didn't really do much, but then Shudder picked it up for like the second wave, and they put it out on Mother's Day, which was super cool because it's like a perfect, you know, it's just a great fit for it. And that, you know, I always thought that was super cool of them. So when we did Z, we had just finished shooting it, and we were kind of in the editing phase, and Shudder was kind of reaching out like, hey, what do you got going on? Like, you know, checking in, and we sent them a little teaser, and they acquired it then based off that. And so it just kind of like became the thing. Like they were always the first call for me, and it's just continued to this day because I've got Night of the Reaper now. And then, you know, early next year, we've got another one called Body Cam that's coming out, and it's, you know, also with them. So I don't know. I mean, it's just like a natural fit for me, and it's been really cool, and it's allowed me to grow as a filmmaker and everything. So it's been cool.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And yeah, they're great. And I hope they just continue to keep on helping independent filmmakers tell their stories. But that actually is a good transition, because I was wondering if you could tell us anything about Body Cam, because I've been following some of the stuff on social media that you've been posting and such about it. And and just wondering like if there's anything you can let us know about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually playing tomorrow in Ohio at Nightmares Film Festival. I was just in Boston and Colorado Springs last weekend, doing screenings for it, and yeah, I mean, it was shot in secret when we did it. Like, it had a fake name, it had all these things, because the idea was we had this really cool gimmick in mind, and that is the body cam, and I didn't want anyone to steal it because the idea was so novel. Like, I watch all these true crime things. I watch all these police body cam videos on YouTube, and there's just something about them that is super captivating and like inherently scary, just because you have this limited focal point, and just allowing that to work. So when we made it, like, I was worried, how is this going to translate to a full narrative film, like just never breaking from these cameras. And it turns out it's pretty cool. And like a lot of the stuff that we take some massive swings with this thing, like visuals wise, like it goes to some really crazy places that was very hard to do just because of the format. Like, if it was a traditional film like Reaper, you can do things a lot simpler. But when you've got, we shot 99% of the film on body cams, or on GoPro, sorry, as the body cams, they're a little less easy to work with like visual effects. Like, they're not as sharp, they're not as clear, there's a ton of motion blur you're dealing with, and so trying to implement all these visual effects into that was an insanely hard challenge. So we had a team from Vancouver that did a lot of the bigger stuff, like a CG creature stuff, and a lot of the 3D stuff that I can't do. And it just took forever. Like, it was in post for 2 years, and it was one of those things where it's just like, I've never had a film go that long, and it was supposed to be the fastest turnaround film I'd ever done. Like, we're going to shoot it, we're going to edit it, we're going to finish it, and it's going to go out because we want to get it out there. And it just didn't work that way. So I can just tell you the basic story, but it's about 2 cops that are being called to a domestic dispute at a house. They don't think anything of it, but then it leads to them both splitting up in the house, and one of the cops shoots one of the occupants in an accidental shooting, and things quickly unravel for them as they're trying to cover it up because they know the body cam's recording them. And if the footage goes public, they know their lives are ruined. So they're kind of just like digging themselves a deeper hole as they're trying to cover up this not crime, but accident that looks really bad on them. And so, yeah, it's just this really weird nightmare of a night as these 2 cops are just trying to stop things from escalating from their accidental shooting earlier in the night. And it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse for them. It's like a total, a roller coaster of from hell.
Oh man, that sounds exciting. As a found footage aficionado, I'm definitely going to be into that, because that's like a found footage style type of movie.
Yeah.
There's actually there's a documentary being released on Netflix soon called The Perfect Neighbor, where it premiered at Sundance, and it sounded like really interesting. It's like a true crime thing, but it's like all done through the body cam, like a true crime, like all through like police footage or house cameras and all that stuff. And it's like taking all the different cameras like that. Cool. Sounds really interesting. But but yeah, also we have Backtrack Cinema, a good friend of mine. He says, looking forward to seeing this one. Definitely should check it out. It's on Shudder now, so and available. It's perfect for the spooky season. And speaking of perfect for the spooky season, that's a good transition, because since it's October, what are some other horror movies kind of in line with Night of the Reaper? Of course, Night of the Reaper is going to be on everyone's list because that's an absolute perfect horror film to watch for spooky season, but there's always other ones. And what other kind of horror movies would you recommend in line with Night of the Reaper to check out? Like, right after they're done with that, what else?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to see where we stole a lot of our ideas from, you can watch stuff like When a Stranger Calls, Scream. We've got some of that in there. House of the Devil, obviously. It's just, there was a lot of films that we wanted to kind of touch on to, get the audience comfortable with what we were doing on this one. So, I think going and seeing where those inspirations come from would be cool. So I think watching Halloween, Scream, When a Stranger Calls, House of the Devil, like those were definitely the biggest influences for us. But, I think I'm a big, just like a vibey kind of person. Like, Halloween's so good because it takes place on Halloween. And so you get the pumpkins and the orange fall and you get all that stuff. So films like Trick or Treat, You know, obviously that's a great Halloween movie, and it's just fun to vibe up, and it's just the vibes are spectacular. So that's really cool. The Adam Sandler movie Hubie Halloween it's not particularly good, but because it takes place, you know, up in Massachusetts, it's just like gorgeous, and it just feels like fall and Halloween, and it's, you know, it's just very cozy. So you know, I'm big on the cozy stuff. So I think those are some good picks. I just learned about a movie called Fright. I don't know if you've ever heard of this. It's from 1971. And it predates When a Stranger Calls by like almost a decade. And it's a, you know, babysitter film from the UK. And I haven't watched it yet, but I need to watch it this month because I'm trying to watch as many as I can, you know, as one does. But yeah, that one I had never heard about until I did another interview, and someone brought it up, and I was like, oh man, I need to look into this, because, you know, I've always assumed When a Stranger Calls was like the first babysitter horror movie, but, you know, this one came out 8 years earlier, and that's crazy to me. So yeah, I'm excited to check it out.
Yeah, no, that was awesome. And you know, we had another question earlier too. I don't know if you know any of these 80s movies, but it says which one do you like the most, The Gate or The Serpent and the Rainbow or Lady in White?
The Gate I remember, and the Lady in White. Lady in White is one of those movies I saw when I was super young. I must have been like 6 or around 6. And I just like, I can't remember much of it, but I do remember certain visual. I need to look this up because I haven't read that title in years, and that has me kind of like flashing back to a time when I was little. That's weird. That's one of the, I'm having like this weird out of body thing right now reading that. But yeah, The Gate was great. I always liked The Gate. I've never seen Serpent or the Rainbow, or Serpent and the Rainbow. Okay, that's 3 different titles.
Yeah, Serpent and the Rainbow.
Yeah. No, I haven't seen that one. But Lady in White, I need to watch the trailer for that after this, because yeah, that's triggering something in me pretty big. But yeah, The Gate was great. You know, I've seen that one more recently, and that one's awesome. So that seems like a safe pick. I can't remember if Lady in White is good or not, but yeah, I do recall images from it, and I'm, you know, definitely going to check this out because yeah, I'm having a weird flashback moment.
Oh yeah, for sure. I've seen the other two, The Gate and Serpent and the Rainbow, but I've actually never seen Lady in White, so that's one I'll probably have to put on my radar to watch tonight. So thank you for that, Acres of Movies. So my final question, and this is kind of a doozy, but a big one. But do you have any advice for, because I know some people might be watching this who want to get into directing, want to get into writing, and like filmmaking and such. Do you have any advice for the people who want to get into the film industry and just like how to start and everything?
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's no like one way to do it. There's like the corporate ladder where you can be a PA and you can kind of work your way through different departments and stuff like that. And then, you know, I kind of just always wanted to be a filmmaker, and it was just one of those things that I don't think anyone's ever going to let you make a movie. You know, like you just have to do it. And so the biggest advice I give anybody is just like pick up a camera. It doesn't matter what. Like you don't need a Red or you don't need an Alexa. Just use your phone. Like the phone is better than anything I had growing up by like tens and tens of thousands. So grab whatever you can and just shoot something simple. You know, like I know a lot of people, they get hung up and they're like, oh, my first short film has to be this amazing thing. I want to get an Oscar. I want to, you know, it's like a World War II movie about these two brothers that are, you know, it's just like, don't do that. I would like that needs so much money and time and stuff like that. And if you did it and you somehow pulled it off, like it's probably going to be terrible because you've never done it before. So you need to really just find a way to do something simple just to practice, you know, like you can't do it. Like you're not going to pick up an instrument and just start blowing in a trumpet and it's going to sound great. So you need to like learn the things. And so by just taking a camera and shooting different things, get a friend and have a conversation with them and shoot it like how you would a movie. You're going to pick up so many things that you wouldn't if you just tried to do this big thing and it wasn't good. So, I mean, you know, there was a time in my life when I was like in my teens and I was nervous and I always had big ideas and I thought I had to wait for my big idea. But it wasn't until I just started picking up the camera again and just started shooting these small things and testing and like trying out ideas that I had that I started to figure out what my voice was. and then it kind of just like, keeps going, and you keep getting better and you get better, and eventually you make something that doesn't suck, and you're just like, oh, cool, like I've learned so and so. So then you implement that into the next one, and you just like keep building, because there's very few people that will just get it right their first time. So don't like spend money and don't spend a lot of time on your first thing, just because you're going to learn a lot. And so I would just, that's always been my advice, is just do it. Just pick up a camera, shoot something, play with an editing software, just like try and find a story in nothing. And then you can slowly get bigger, because you don't want to show up on set one day with a ton of people looking at you, and you've spent all this money, and all of a sudden you're like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Like, I don't know how to talk to people. I don't know how to put a camera down. Like, I don't know any of that stuff. So if you just start now, like don't wait, just pick up your phone and just start shooting anything, and just get familiar with having images in front of you that you can kind of use to tell a story. That's my biggest advice. Just don't overcomplicate it. Keep it simple, and just do it, because if you don't, you probably won't, if unless you just do it.
Oh yeah, no, I completely agree. It almost goes the same with like, my field here, just like reviewing and being on YouTube, doing stuff like this. Like when I did that Superhost review that you commented on, like all that, when I first started the channel, I was really bad, not good at doing it. But I was like, but you know what? I just like, this is a passion of mine. I want to be able to come on here and talk about stuff. And then eventually I just grow and improved and got better as I went along. And that's how it is with filmmaking as well. So
totally.
Oh yeah, definitely. But yeah, again, thank you so much for coming on here and agreeing to do this interview with me. I really loved Night of the Reaper, and hope that everyone watching, that y'all go check this film out, because it's streaming on Shudder. So if you have Shudder, you can easily access it, or on AMC Plus as well. If you have AMC Plus, you guys can watch on there as well. So yeah, thank you again for this.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much, man. I appreciate you reaching out and getting this together. It's cool. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Yeah, this was cool. And of course, any time once Body Cam comes out or any other feature films come out, you're always invited to come on here and discuss your projects on here. So
awesome. Yeah. Thanks, man.
No problem. So for all of y'all who tuned in, thank y'all for tuning in, guys. Like this video, subscribe, share, ring that notification bell, guys, so you do not miss a single video. I will see you all in the next one. And until then, stay spooky, my friends.